And we will share my screen. Okay, perfect. So, welcome to Enhancing the Accountant Bookkeeper Connection series. For those of you who don't know me, but I think most everybody on this call knows me, that's myself, Tanya Hilt. I am a certified professional bookkeeper. I am the founder of Cloud Bookkeeping Services. Oh, no, that does need to be updated since this summer. We are recently rebranded to Cloud Business Services. So yes, so I'm the founder of Cloud Business Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp. Little bit about myself. I'm not going to go through all of this stuff, but it's just needless to say that I am a multi-award-winning I guess we are a multi-award-winning team because I would not be where I am without my team. So I need to rephrase that. Say we are, excuse me, recognized as an influencer. And Jonathan and I were just talking about that yesterday. It kind of sucks when we're at the front of change because with all of these conferences, as wonderful as they are, there's not a lot of topics for those of us that have been at the front of change and embracing this for years. And I know some of you on here will probably fully agree because you've been, doing it for, in the cloud and whatnot as long as we have. So it's a good thing, yet it's a bad thing, I guess. It's harder to find things to learn from. Anyway, so we will just move on. A little bit about myself. Personally, for those of you, again, who know me know that I'm, love my family. We love unique experiences. So those are just pictures of not just my family, but myself and my daughter. My husband's in one of them. But myself and my daughter with our unique experiences that we've met, some of our favorite bands and some of our favorite actors of our favorite TV show. And we were learning ASL. I'm probably going to have to take that off because we dropped that. So this webinar has been submitted for CC credits through CPB Canada. Wow, this really needs an update. This is what happens when we take 2 months off. There will be 2 polls that must be answered in order to qualify for the credits. The recording of the webinar will be emailed within 2 days, and certificates, if approved, will be emailed within 2 weeks of receiving the approval. So KATA Accounting, so that's Jonathan. So I've been collaborating with Jonathan and his team for a number of years. We have multiple clients. What I love about Jonathan is he works within QBO. He's got attention to detail, outstanding customer service. He really cares about the clients and, what they're looking for. So absolutely wonderful to collaborate with. And of course, collaborating with Jonathan has made me definitely a better bookkeeper because he is truly collaborative and helping me learn what I can do better, which is better for the client as well too.
Oh, thanks, Kim.
So go ahead and take it away. I will stop sharing my screen so that you can share your screen.
All right. Thanks for that lovely comment and lovely intro. Thanks, Kim, for that also lovely comment. Oh, this is on the wrong monitor. I'm going to be looking to the side the whole time. Let me just fix this for a second.
Insima Supernatural's awesome. We can talk about it anytime. Maybe I'll even get you to come to the convention with me in Toronto in August. It's so much fun. Anyway.
All right, so go back to this. So with it being the season of conferences, and of course there are no conferences this year, I'm just going to be frank, I'm really missing it. And for me, the virtual conferences aren't as good. And the reason being is because my favorite part about the conferences is the serendipitous event. That is standing in line for coffee and starting to talk to the person in front of you or behind you. Walking through the hall and bumping into somebody who you've met online but you haven't seen in real life in the year, and really being able to get to know people and learn a bit about what different people do and in different regions and things along those lines. So I thought it would be very important to talk about relationships. We'll get into this in just a second. So a little bit about me, founder of KATA Accounting Solutions Professional Corporation. I was a member of the inaugural Intuit Accountants Council and I've been working with Intuit quite a bit even as recently as last Monday, helping out with the work paper presentation for CPD. I was very, very blessed and very flattered to have been nominated and have received the 2018 Inspire Accountant Award. And that was from the bookkeeping community. That was from colleagues that I worked with. So I really, really appreciate that. We're elite ProAdvisors, QBO Advanced Certified. We're a trusted advisor for several cloud bookkeeping firms. Considered a thought leader in technology and accounting. And I like working with technology companies. Typically, that's what we tend to focus with. So we tend not to work in things like retail, restaurants, doctors' offices, lawyers. So when we get those kind of leads, we tend to pass them along. Another great reason, niche. If somebody's niched, I can send them something and trust that that person is going to be taken care of because that's all the person works in. So just a quick agenda for today. Why do relationships matter? What makes for a healthy relationship? What are the most important relationships? How do you create and build relationships? How do you evaluate relationships? And how do you handle toxic relationships, which I'm sure nobody here has ever experienced. So we do have to do poll questions for CEC. So poll number 1, why do relationships matter? A, they don't really matter. B, because they allowed us to build community. C, because they allow you to extract the most value out of the person with whom you have the relationship. D, they encourage long, healthy lives with less stress. Or E, B, and D. Do you want to put up the poll question, Tanya?
Yep. And hopefully everybody can vote because
it's on
I
my
know
screen.
there's, oh, that's why. Well,
I'm
while
like,
we're waiting for people to vote, I actually put in there, my very first conference, I actually met Kim there. So this is, and it was the IPBC Vancouver 5-6 years ago. Yep. Yeah, it's funny when you say the conferences and the people that we meet there. And I mean, I think almost everybody on the call that I know I've met at a conference at one point or another, but Kim was my very first one.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yep, out in Vancouver. So yeah, it's what happens when you
Tanya virginity.
Exactly. There we go.
You're her
Yeah.
first, Kim.
You
Yeah, I
always
also,
remember your first, right?
exactly. Well, you and Maureen Short. That's right. There you go. I met Maureen there too. So, and a lot of people too. There was quite a few people, that Kelly Parks I met for the first time there, Lisa Channel, Shirley Mathers. But yeah,
It's amazing how the people you meet there will change your life. Like
absolutely.
I'm thinking back, and the first person I met at a conference, and he truly did change the trajectory of CATA accounting and my life, is Brian Tritt.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like I mean, I didn't know anything from anything. It was my first conference ever. It was before there was such thing as Connect or Thrive even, and
Wow.
I just ended up talking with Brian and got introduced into it in the Accountants Council, and then from there, Chad and Jenny and all kinds of amazing people, Andrew and
Yeah. Well, and I was actually at IPBC because of Brian Tritt. Yeah, absolutely
great.
amazing. He saw something in me and he put me into another group, and then they had we had to write an essay and submit. They were giving away a Ron Baker mentorship through the Black
That's
Swan.
right.
So Intuit was sponsoring it. They were giving one away. And I guess Tamitha and our entries blew them away. So they ended up giving them to both of us. But literally I found out a week ahead of time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to try to, pay to fly there and everything. And I almost didn't go. But Tamitha talked me into it, and I'm so glad that I went. Yes, it's very
Where
expensive
was that
booking
one?
flights. It was big. It was Richmond, BC.
I love Richmond.
We would have caught up with
I
you.
heard they have
eventually
like
if you didn't
no.
go.
Sorry, what was that, Kim?
I said we would have caught up with you eventually if you didn't go.
Exactly.
All right. So
Yeah.
do we have poll results?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, excellent. B and D. Yes, it's actually empirically proven that having good, healthy, positive relationships creates longer lives, healthier lives, and less stressful lives. One of the top drivers of happiness is shared meals with family and friends. So, I mean, in these times, of course, we can't sit at the table. We can't, hug each other or, shake hands or even like really be at the same table right now. It's got to be really challenging for some people. So I thought this was Tanya and I both thought this was a really good idea for today. So,
Yep.
all right. So this is just some of the data, the research. So relationships are the foundation to a meaningful life. We are social creatures. There's a very cool organization called the Greater Good Science Center in Berkeley, California, that says relationships are vital to positive psychology and essential to human flourishing and happiness. Greater Good Science Center is pretty interesting. I'd encourage people to check it out. Has a lot to do with mindfulness, has a lot to do with happiness, a lot to do with relationships. And it can really, I mean, it's not light reading. It's not really business reading. It's more generic than that, but it can be an interesting read if you're looking for that kind of nonfiction reading. There's lots of material there, like thousands and thousands and thousands of articles. According to the UN, stable family life is a key driver to happiness. Building a sense of community is physiologically and psychological need for humans. In reading this particular source of this information was funny because they really used the example from Castaway with Tom Hanks and Wilson as an example of what happened when you have no contact with other people. But yeah, relationships allow for sharing of successes and failures. And according to Northwestern Medicine, it reduces stress. So I'm just going to throw this first thing out there. Tanya, let's go to you. What
I was just
what
going to say,
matters for you?
especially right now, the sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like in boot camp, we've been getting together every single Friday through COVID. We started that just before COVID, and it was for a different reason. Then we flipped over just to be able to support each other and just to be able to sometimes like vent or, whatever. But we really need that at times to be able to help, to help each other. And I really think right now, especially the stress that we're going under, we're in a field that is isolating to begin with. And then you throw COVID and all of this extra work on top of it that we're doing, that our community has become so, so important. Because let's face it, we can talk to, if we've got, great family life, we can talk to them, but they don't really understand what we're going through. And so I think it's, again, those other relationships really matter. And then being able to talk to others in our community and, that understand what we're going through actually helps us on the other side, because now we're not going and putting as much stress onto our family side. So that's just my thoughts on it, that both are very, very important.
These communities have been very important. Like, I mean, I know I'm not really one to hop on a Facebook Live or things like that, but I'll just call you and things like that and stuff like that from time to time. And Kim has started a business book club that
Yes.
I've really been enjoying. I know we're only a few months in, but I have been enjoying it. Problem is, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this month's selection again because I finished it already. It was good though. It was like my third time going through it. Still got more out of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anybody else?
I'd love to join that. I just have no time to read right now. So
Audible, baby. Audible is my savior. So how about everybody else? Why do relationships matter to you? Any just comments, thoughts?
Personally, I've been stuck home with my children now for an insane period of time. And any adult conversation, excluding my husband's, is highly valued. So I really, really, really miss the human interaction. And Tanya, your groups on Friday have been an absolute lifesaver. Even if I don't speak, I'm listening. I'm listening to other adults have a conversation. It's wonderful.
And you know what? Sometimes it's just simply, you're right, hearing another conversation and being able to relate to that, even if you're, not speaking about it, you're, just sometimes, I mean, we had on one of the boot camp calls at the very beginning, I think I spoke out, or maybe it was even on Beyond the Cloud. It was somewhere. And Lisa, I remember Lisa spoke out about how she was feeling. I spoke out and said, yeah, I had a full-on breakdown. And that just everybody. I could just see the looks on people's faces going, I thought I was the only one. You know, I thought I just had to suck it up. And, you know, it makes you feel really good. Just knowing that other people out there are feeling the same way, and it's not just you, you're not overstressed. I mean, whatever the reason. So yeah.
It's that exact thing about the sharing
Yeah.
of successes, the sharing of failures. I mean, we could expand that, the sharing of knowledge, the sharing of experiences, you know, those, I think we could go further. Kim, did
Yep.
you want to pipe in and say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say what I really pull from my relationships is sort of that chicken soup when you're sick kind of comfy feeling with your slippers and blanket, because I find a lot of times, like Tanya was just saying, we put on this front that we're okay. And when something finally reaches a breaking point and everybody's like, oh, I'm so glad I wasn't the only one. I find when we're putting on that front, having a very close relationship with somebody that can see past that and really knows you and really understands you and can recognize those triggers that you're trying not to exhibit or that you're trying to hide is such a comfortable feeling, and it's a safe feeling.
Yep.
I think that's a big part of relationships. They have to make you feel secure. I think that really drives very well into the next slide I prepared, was what makes a healthy relationship. So this is from Northwestern Medicine. This is not my material. Yeah, people who listen to each other. We just talked about that. Oh, people who communicate openly and without judgment. We just talked about that to a degree as well. And I think this is harder to maintain in a professional setting, a business setting, in kind of these networks. I know that there's some judgment that goes on behind the scenes, and we're all like, we do that. Like, that's kind of our training, right? Is like judging the state of a set of books or how a business is doing, things like that. But I think trust and respect kind of overrule, and that's very big in our communities. They consistently make time for each other. This is something that I'm weak at, that I'm trying to get better at. Remember details about each other's lives and engage in healthy activities together. So those are some of the items that came there.
And that leads right into Kim's book club. So I know, Kim, if you want to share the details to your book club too, in case anybody else here wants to join it.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'll post the link in the chat, but essentially it's a Facebook group for people, business owners or managers, or even just people that enjoy reading nonfiction books. Majority of the book topics are business focused, but a few of them have been a little self-help focused as well. The schedule of books gets posted at least a couple of months in advance, and then we all read the same book on a monthly basis, and then we meet for an hour once a month it usually works out to about the third Wednesday of each month at 3 p.m. and that schedule is also posted for the whole year, so you can plan around it. And the books are all selected by the members of the group. Each time we have a meeting, people attending that meeting put forward some recommendations, and then I post them in the group as a poll, and everybody votes on which one is their favorite to cover, and then I add it to the schedule.
It's a business book club, so we're not reading like, you know, The Handmaid's Tale or you know,
Twilight, Harry Potter.
Harlequin, no Harlequin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any other comments about other things? Because this is definitely not an inclusive list. So what are some other things that make a healthy relationship? Okay. No comments?
So, sorry, Jonathan.
No, go ahead, please.
It's very interesting because right now I'm volunteering with a not-for-profit group that is very much about in connections, and it's connecting seniors with their families. And one of the things that we're looking at is connecting them visually. So it's not just the telephone conversation, but it's the physical seeing of your connecting community. I think that makes a difference.
I think that's true. And those kind of shared experiences going like to whatever it might be. Like if I can share a story as well. So I'm treasurer at the Japanese Canadian Cultural Center. And since the shutdown, it's been very, very damaging. The center, about 80% of the revenue relies on in-person settings, and the community served is the average age is in the 70s. So everybody's in the high risk category. One of the things that happens every year is something called Issei Day. And that's kind of like, there's a tradition in Japanese culture of honoring your elders and those people who came before you. So this is a meal that for the first generation Japanese Canadians, and they're all like, they're in their like late 80s, 90s, hundreds even now. So getting together, impossible. So this year it was set up, and the most we've ever done in 1 year was 350 bento boxes. This year was 394 bento boxes. And what was happening was that generation below was connecting with their parents and connecting with their parents' friends, doing the pickup of the bentos, visiting with their parents, and helping their parents do things like they've been using WhatsApp, but things like Zoom and WhatsApp to have these face-to-face connections and be able to catch up and so on. So it's interesting. Like, I agree, like seeing each other is important, more important than a phone call for sure. And I think that a lot of people are being left out in the cold right now, just not knowing how to use the technology.
Well, and some people need that. I mean, I don't need it as much as other people. I can be just as much of an introvert as I can be an extrovert. I'm okay. But you take a look at my daughter. She needs to be a little bit more so. My niece is completely social person. So, different people have different needs, and some people it might affect their mental health more if they can't have those face-to-face connections than it might, the next person. So
Yeah,
it's really important.
that's very true. That's very true. Introverts are like, yay. Extroverts are like, oh.
It depends on my mood.
Yes.
I personally flip for either, which is exactly where, Kim said, yes, we found a small couch in the corner, and, I sometimes, do better one-on-one, but it again depends on who I'm surrounded with. And sometimes I have to force myself and sometimes I don't, which is, but yeah, but you're right. Those people that are full on extroverts, like, this is really has an impact on the mental health. So at least being able to connect visually, it's not the same as being able to hug and touch and, be there, but you definitely a heck of a lot better than the phone for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to kids, forget about it. Like, I mean, I was lucky enough to see my goddaughter for the first time since the wedding on
Wow.
Sunday, and yeah, there was no stopping her.
Yeah.
It was lovely. It was fantastic. How about everybody else? Is there anything else that you think is really important to creating a healthy relationship, positive relationship? Yeah, go on, Kim.
Boundaries.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. So do you want to expand on that a bit more?
Well, I saw lots of heads nodding, so I don't know how much expansion is necessary, but I think it's healthy in any relationship, business, personal, casual, deeper relationships, to have boundaries. So everybody knows sort of what your expectations are of each other, and it doesn't lead to disappointment or resentment or feelings of, one person putting more in than the other person does. Nobody's getting taken advantage of if everybody's honoring and respecting those boundaries. And I think it's healthy. Sometimes it's especially, I find with my clients, it's a little difficult to install boundaries sometimes because we care about them so much, and even the people in our lives, it's hard to enforce boundaries when you care about people. But for our own personal health, and it's like on an airplane, they say put your own mask on first before anybody else. We always have to take care of ourselves first in order to take care of the people we care about. So I think enforcing the boundaries is important in a healthy way, of course, in a nice way, not a way, but yeah.
All right, so can I take a quick tangent then and ask, what are some things that you do? Let's talk about the client relationship for a minute to help teach clients those boundaries.
I think Kathy is an excellent person to speak on what she does.
I think I've heard some of Kathy's comments on that before.
What boundary
I'll
are we
just
hitting
use
here,
an
Kimmy?
example of why I'm going to defer to Kathy, because one of my biggest clients that was overstepping boundaries all the time was a large nonprofit that I deal with. And I had a conversation with Kathy about how I felt all the time after my interactions with them. Like they would just beat me up, and the president of the company, not everybody else. But I just felt horrible after my interactions with them and the expectations that they had, and, you know, always chasing my tail to try and meet those expectations. And Kathy actually shared with me a process that she uses for her nonprofits when she was in a similar situation. And it's worked great. It was a letter that she shared a portion of with me, and I sent it out. I sent it out specifically to them only, but I did a blind copy and I addressed it as if it was going to all my clients so that they wouldn't know I was singling them out. But I just said, you know, hi, Beyond Bookkeeping family, you know, just letting you know there's some changes in whatever. And so, yeah, so there's been a couple of times where they pushed a bit, but definitely not like they used to all the time. So I don't know if
That was received.
talk
One
about her
email.
letter with everybody.
Yeah, it's it is important to set out those boundaries because, and I was gonna comment about personality type affects boundaries,
Mhm.
right? So different personalities look at boundaries in a different way. So some people who are perhaps the more introverted, they don't push boundaries near as hard as people who are more extroverted, right? Or used to getting their own way, or at the top of the food chain, right? When
Alphas.
we're looking at our clients. And a lot of times it's being able to stand up for yourself, right? And so the letter that Kimmy's referring to was, I had a particular client that was pushing those same kind of boundaries quite a few years ago. And you just lay it on the line and say, this is what my values are. This is how I value myself. And if you don't see those values in me, then this isn't a healthy relationship. And it is building that healthy relationship so that the client just goes, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. And it's the awakening in them, right? Letting them know, they're like, whoa, like I didn't even realize we were doing that. And then they make a change to it.
So Kathy, how were you able to communicate that in a positive way? Because sometimes when people overstep boundaries, that conversation can be very difficult and can result in exactly what Kim was talking about, like resentment and hurt feelings. How did you do it in a positive way?
It was completely neutral.
Just completely neutral
Yeah. So it was,
language and
and just like Kimmy
uber
said, I mean,
professional.
yeah, she sent it out as if it had been sent to all of her clients, right? Even though it was really only sent to one. The letter that I did was sent to all of my NPO clients at that time. And it was just, this is the way I have to do business in order to be able to continue to serve you the best that I can. So these are the changes that we have to make. So again, there was no finger pointing, you did this, you did this, you did that. It was, this is what I have to do to be the best for you.
That's
So
a
the
really
specific thing that we were both suffering from with our NPOs was the expectation to be available all the time, evenings, weekends, short notice, whatever, like at the drop of a pin. And so basically the context of the letter was a reminder to all of our clients, even if we're only sending it to them, that these are our office hours. Yes, I can be available for you outside of those hours, but this is what it's going to cost you. And it was a difference in rates for evening work or anything over 8 hours a day, or weekend work. And it just really made them realize that they, like she said, it made them realize that they didn't understand, just because they might be working 7 days a week, 24/7, that the expectation shouldn't be there for me to do that for them as well. And so and then it also made them prioritize, do they really want me to do something on a weekend, or can it wait until Monday? You know, and so it like I said, there has been a couple instances. They had a board meeting recently, a lot of last minute things they needed done. But the regular day-to-day stuff that typically can wait till a weekday, they've been waiting.
Good.
Yeah. And I think the other point too was to let your, so one of the things that I encounter, especially when new staff come on for my clients, they think of me as an employee. So the staff member thinks that I'm available Monday through Friday, 9 to 4, like, whatever the hours are, whenever they want you. And it's like,
Yep.
you have to realize you are not my only client. I am not a staff member of your firm, right? And it's building that relationship as well. Defining your relationship, I think, is part of building a healthy relationship, is
That's
also defining what your relationship is within an organization. And that's where the NPOs come in. They're like, but you only work for me. And I'm like, no, you're one of 5. Right? Like, you're not the only one. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I think our clients may forget that as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
I'd be curious, Jonathan, because you sort of prompted this question, was about how did we handle having that discussion with them so that there wouldn't be hurt feelings afterwards. We both do it in a very neutral way. Like she said, we sent this letter out sort of as a policy reminder to everybody, but I'd be curious if anybody has had that boundary discussion with an individual where there were some hurt feelings and how they handled that.
So I did have that situation happen with earlier on in the business with actually a former classmate from accounting school. I don't think so some history. Premlada and I went to through the CMA program together, but this was the qualification for this was before. And this is a qualified accountant who has been trained and works as a CPA. And this person just kept asking for free stuff and asking me to do work for nothing. And it just got to the point where it's like, listen, would you work for free? No, then why do you expect me to? And it was like, geez, you're not a very good friend. All I'm doing is asking questions. And like there was a whole tirade. To be honest, that relationship was very much one way. I think as a community, we're all givers. We tend to give to our clients and the people we work with. That particular person was very much a taker, all about them. And when you didn't want to play ball and just do whatever they wanted, it was very, very bad. Now, in the end, that relationship has been damaged, and I am perfectly fine with that. So.
Yeah, and it's funny from the opposite aspect, and I guess it just goes to show that I've got some very great relationships out there. Is we've got so in boot camp. Of course, anybody who's been in boot camp or knows about boot camp, and there's quite a few boot campers on the call, knows we're more like you after spending so much time together, you become more like a family, and there's that personal connection too, and that trust. It's really everything that's in here. And I've had several people say to me, which actually did spawn a new service that I just soft launched. But several people say to me, you know what? No, they just, want to continue to be able to call me. And I'm like, just call me. I'm here for you. Like, I don't care if boot camp's over. We're here. This is just exactly, what we are. I'm here for you. And then I've had those people not wanting to take advantage of it. So they will ask a few small, quick questions. But then I found out within the past month that they're going and actually buying monthly subscription services from somebody else, not as an insult to me, it's actually as a compliment to me, because they value my time so much and don't feel comfortable taking free time. So that's kind of why I spawned, okay, great. If you really want to pay somebody for it, you really want to pay me, here's some advisory, an advisory service plan that I've soft launched with that. But it's interesting how you have some people that are more takers and some people who are, it tells you a lot about the person, that are the complete opposite. Because when I said to somebody else about that, that they had gone, there was 3 people that had gone, and they're like, oh, I would be upset. And I'm like, first off, no, because difference of opinions, is good. Secondly, I actually take it as a compliment that they actually do truly value my time. So it's interesting with that. And then on the other side, as people are saying, you have to walk away. It's funny. I'm doing a mentorship with Jeannie Whitehouse right now. And the first thing Jeannie had us do is a DISC personality assessment. And she swears by that. And the one thing I learned, and I showed this to my husband and Sherry Lee Mathers, because Sherry and I are doing this together, and we laugh because it is just so me. It is not the young me, it is the now me. And the now me, what it is, this personality assessment says what's your natural communication style, and then what's your adaptive communication style. And it goes through 4 different things. My natural communication style is, whatever it is that goes through. And my adaptive communication style for all 4 areas are that you don't see a problem with the way you communicate. And if people don't like the way you communicate, then that's their problem, not yours. They can move on. And I just laughed and I'm like, oh, okay. It's so true though, but I've learned over the years, I think all of us have, you've learned that there's just only so much you can give, or, when you have these toxic relationships and you recognize that they're toxic, you have to cut them off, and sometimes it's hard to do. I am the person that used to bring home all the strays. That's what my husband used to say. You bring home all the strays. Anybody that needs help, I wanted to help anybody for no matter what it was. And it sometimes just takes a lot. And you're right. If you don't have those boundaries or that respect or the give and take,
then you can't.
I find it so much easier to separate. Like, I have no problem maintaining boundaries in my personal relationships, and I'm very quick to enforce them and even walk away if I need to. In business, it's so much harder. I find it so much harder with clients than I do personally.
I'm just curious as to why.
I don't know.
Okay.
If I could figure that out. Maybe because my livelihood depends on the client ones. I mean, they're paying me, whereas personal relationships, they're not paying me. So I think if I did try to drill down on it a bit, there may be a bit of fear about losing that livelihood, especially right now in COVID. Many of you know my travel industry clients were affected. So I do feel I'm tiptoeing a bit on eggshells to maintain the clients that I have. And so I think that's a bit of it. I'm sure there's more, but that's the reason that originally comes to mind.
Yeah, I think fear is one of the things that actually drives us, looking on this phone number and knowing that you need to reply, you need to pick up the phone, even though it's 8 p.m. and you're on a family dinner. It's a sense of, I think it's a sense of responsibility, right? Because most of us, we're quite responsible people, and also the fear.
Mm-hmm.
As you, Kim, said, it's in those times when everything is so shaky, it's really affecting us, and we want to just, we just want to keep going.
Well, and Kathy mentioned too, I think it's because we're a service business, but I know myself and a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, especially those of us that are females, have started our businesses for that flexibility around our family lives. Maybe we wanted to be home for their children. So I know when I started, it was, I wanted to be exactly that. I wanted to be there for my child. I wanted to go and volunteer at her school. So I did a lot of evening and weekend work. And that was how I got clients in, saying, guess what? I'll talk to you in the evening or weekend, whenever you need to. And that became the expectation. And it's really hard to change that when now you're like, no, I'm a real business now. I don't want the flexibility. My child doesn't need me. I want my evenings to spend with my family or my child or whatever. It's really hard to change those boundaries. Because
that's a great point. It's one thing to set them initially. It's difficult to change them.
Yep.
When circumstances needs that.
Yep.
Sounds like we could do a whole nother session on just boundaries. Never mind relationships.
I think so. Well, and it's funny because I know Jennifer Baldick has her call tomorrow, I think it is, and it's on when to have those difficult discussions with those clients.
Yeah, I think
when to fire them.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm going to go on to the next slide because we do have some more. And there was an interesting point that came up. And actually, I think it was Kim who brought it up. So this is just for to get the ball rolling. What relationships matter the most? Any comments, ideas? What's the most important relationship out there for everybody?
I'm sure everybody will agree family is the number one, right? Your spouse, your children, um, my in-laws, my parents, brothers, sisters. I think that's number one. And everything else just follows. and then probably your friends. And to me, number three will be clients.
I agree, Elena.
And the
Absolutely.
customers, yeah.
My order would be, and I don't know if the first one will really make sense, but my most important relationship is the one I have with me, with my mini me. I mean,
I agree
always,
with you, and that's the one I prioritize as well.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
people always talk about how you have to love yourself before you can love someone else, and I think it goes so much further than that. You have to love yourself, trust yourself, you have to trust your instincts and respect your values. My next one in my list would be, I'm not a super religious person, but I do believe that there is a higher power. I don't necessarily practice religion or anything, but I do think it's important for me to have that peace in my life. Like there's a reflection that I read every morning, and it just sort of sets the tone for me. And it's something that I can always fall back on. And then third is my relationships with people.
Interesting. That's a very cool way of framing it. So the thoughts I put on this slide were just my thoughts. They definitely won't apply to everybody, but it's kind of how I think. So yeah, self is number one. And one thing I'm really learning a lot about from my wife is the positive and negative talk and how important that is. Because if you're always down on yourself, always negative on yourself, you'll believe it. You'll believe it eventually. So it's important to kind of, every time you have that negative self-talk, to understand why you're having that negative self-talk and have some positive reinforcement. And then, yeah, family and friends, I would kind of put side by side. I do have some friends who I am closer with than other family members, but I think family and friends are very important. And team. And team, I would include colleagues as well. Like this kind of group, kind of some people from this group are right up there with family and friends, and so some people are more at the collegial level, but I would put team in the collegial level together, the clients and then prospects. And I did add prospects on this list because sometimes planting those seeds, they take a long time to germinate and a long time before you can harvest anything from those networking, those potential business relationships. So we are scooting along here. I'm just going to go to the next slide. So creating and building relationships. This was some interesting material. Again, not my material. This was stuff that I found from various organizations. Northwestern Medicine and Greater Good Science Center were my primary sources. But these were just some of the tricks. There was 11 that I found, but these were some. So creating and building relationships, being intentional about it. What kind of people do you want to have relationships with? I mean, if you don't want to have relationships with crackheads, don't go to a crack house, right? Like that kind of idea. So I really miss that about the conference season this year, because that's what I loved about it, was being, going out there and meeting like-minded people, our tribe per se. Asking questions. I love listening to people and learning about people, engaging with them, and finding out more about what's important to them and what their values are and things like that can help you determine how deep a relationship you want with that person. Listening I find it fascinating to listen to all the stories. I have a couple interesting ones I'd love to share, but I don't know if I should. And they are built one-on-one. You don't build a relationship with a whole group of people, and people recognize when you're not yourself, when you're not authentic. People know. So were there any comments or anything anybody wanted to say about this particular? All right, I'm going to take to the next one, because I think the next one is really important. That is evaluating relationships. So just some comments about these are some of the things that I found. This was from Greater Good Science Center. The third one really gets to me. That's when I know I need to consider terminating a client. When they contact me, do I dread it. When that phone rings, do I see that? And I'm like, oh, geez. When I see that email in my inbox, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's next, right? And then there is give and take. And I think there is a positive synergy that can happen where both people give and the sum of the parts is greater than them individually, right? Where you can go very much further if you're both giving at the same time. But if there's one giver and one taker, it just sucks the energy right out of the giver, right? And I think we have to be careful because a lot of us are givers. Does this relationship serve me anymore? Like, I'm sure we all had that friend that we love to, I don't know, party with, drink with, whatever, back in the day that we almost never see anymore. And sometimes it just happens as people and things grow. And then this was a big one to me, was the positive or negative. Is it encouraging positive behavior to me or negative behavior to me? And one of the things I love most about my wife is that she really does create a positive, bring positivity to my life. So were there any questions or comments about any of these? Okay. Just some pictures because I'm being all nostalgic and missing people and stuff. And probably we've talked a bit about this, dealing with toxic relationships. So we've talked about boundaries. We haven't really talked about communicating the discomfort, but we have talked about how to resolve that. I think that was amazing information from Kathy. And for me, being positive and creating a positive feedback loop can be really beneficial. I did have one client who I was worried I was going to have to drop. I think they're a really good person, but they were going through a tough time, and it was being taken out on me, and I recognize that. And we've managed to really salvage that relationship well by creating a system where we feed back into each other in a positive manner. We're not in touch as much as we used to be, but that relationship is trucking along, and we're growing together, and hopefully that's going to be really good. And I can talk about that down the road. Sometimes, like, you have to break up with the person. You have to minimize, right? You have to, hey, do you want to go to the pub tonight? It's like, yeah, sorry, I can't. I have to do something. Maybe you don't have to do something, but maybe that's a situation you don't want to be in. Does anybody else have any thoughts about dealing with toxic relationships?
I think my only thought on that is sometimes, again, when we're givers, that we feel bad about breaking that relationship, about cutting it loose, and feeling conflicted over that. But, if it's toxic and it's negative, and I've cut people out of my life for very same reasons, people that, I've been friends with for a long time, but I've realized they're not real friends, or they're not good friends. They're not good for me to be around. I mean, we noticed there was one person I was friends with since grade 9 in high school. And Rod noticed, and of course this was, probably like 7 years later type of thing. So it was after high school, but he noticed every single time I spent time with her, he and I ended up fighting. And it was interesting. I took a step back, and she had had toxic, male relationships, and therefore she, fed that onto me, and, oh, men suck, and men this and men that. And I ended up feeding it up, and I would get back, and Rod would do something, and I would get snappy with him, and that's not good. But and then I took a step back, and I was like, wow, she was always negative. And I'm like, I have to cut her out of my life, because I didn't realize the impact, but I felt bad because I'm like, oh, but we've been friends for so long. But if it's not healthy for you, you can't do it. Like, you have to.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to set that boundary. You have to minimize or break up.
And you'll feel better afterwards. It's just like with the client, that you sit there and you think the same thing. I think it's easier with, we've all had clients we've had to fire, and we think, oh my gosh, the money, the this, the that. There's a reason why I don't want to get rid of them. And the minute that you do, you kind of go through your grieving process, and then afterwards you're like, wow, I didn't realize how much stress that person put on you.
You literally feel it on your shoulders.
Exactly.
You stand a little taller, you sit a little straighter, you literally feel it. Yeah, Rita had a good comment in the chat that, yeah, it's hard when you're being honest and it hurts them and they don't see how they're being toxic.
Yeah.
And sometimes personalities, everything is external. Hey, this goes back to mindset, Kim. That was the book we did a couple months ago. But like sometimes people will blame everybody else for the problem and they can never see what their behavior is creating an issue. So
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions, actually. One about that specific thing, that if they don't understand how they're being toxic, when you're having that, just because I was in this situation recently and I chose not to tell them, I ended the relationship, and they were just kind of like, oh, really? Why? Have I done something wrong? And I had told her, you know, times when she had upset me with various things that had happened, and it was just sort of her, it came really down to a personality thing, that was just the way that she was. And I felt at that time when I was ending the relationship that I didn't need to give her a reason why. I felt that would have been unnecessary to insult somebody's personality. I think it's fine to just say, we're not a fit, or, you know, whatever. And I just wondered how much when you're ending a relationship with somebody and you're trying not to be hurtful, how much information do you really give them of why you're ending the relationship?
Okay, well, I'll give my thought on that. And it's difficult, and that'll be different for every person. I think when you come to that decision to end the relationship, it's not an easy decision to begin with. You've thought about it long and hard. You've probably already tried. Like, none of us want to end a relationship without, excuse me, trying to mend it or trying to do things. So I think when you get to that point, you're already at your wit's end. Just like if you are firing a client, I don't think you have to give reasons. I think it's perfectly fine just to go away and not give a reason. Maybe it will hurt that person unnecessarily. Maybe it won't do any good. Maybe it'll just give bad feelings. You know, it's so that's my thought. I thought, you know, sometimes maybe you want to share why. Sometimes maybe you don't, but it's your reasons, and you don't need to give anybody, you don't need to justify your reasons.
Yeah. You're taking care of the most important relationship.
As long as you are okay with your reasons, really, at the end of the day, if you can justify them to yourself, I think that's the most important thing.
And I think that goes, I agree with everything you just said, because you're right. We're not going to just openly let a relationship go without trying to mend it first. And I think, like, number 2, communicate your discomfort and work to resolve it. If you've already had those conversations and you've already tried to mend the relationship, most often several times, and it hasn't happened, there's been no change, there's been no effort to attempt to change, and you're just not seeing the reciprocal feelings coming from them of wanting to make that situation better, then I think once you get to that point of severing it, that no further explanation should be necessary.
I agree.
I think that all it does is serve to create conflict. All right, we do need to get the CEC part done.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Oh, yes, I had a slide on.
I love this analogy. Yeah.
Good, good. Yeah, this is kind of my feelings on it. I think we should move to this next slide, though, because we do have to get the poll so everybody can get their CEC.
Okay, lunch polling. Perfect. There we are.
A and C.
That's right. Conferences. What do we do at conferences? We don't
Right?
go there to learn, right?
While we're answering that poll, the other question that I had was about if you have any type of timeline of how long you give a relationship a chance before you decide to sever it. And again, for me, it's very different in personal and business. In personal, I don't give it more than 3 to 6 months. In business, it can go on much longer sometimes, depending on the severity of what's happening. But
Yeah, and I think that would change to me anyway. That would vary per person, per situation. Maybe somebody's doing some little things that they don't realize that you're going to give more leeway, and maybe the next person's come in and just done something completely like, whoa, back
Yeah.
off, person, right? So, yeah, again, I think it's something that just you need to be comfortable with, and you know, again, different situations. So I think I'm sharing the poll results. I
Yep.
made sure everybody answered. So we got 100%
Awesome.
answered.
Yay. Okay.
Yeah.
CC out of the way.
Yeah. And I think the person, whoever answered the second one, I think they read it wrong. It's because it
Yeah,
was
there
communicate
were,
open and judge each other. And I
yeah.
think they meant like communicate openly and not judge each other. So
Yeah, it was kind of the way I wrote it, and then act like they care about each other, right? Like,
because the communicate openly looks really nice. I was like, oh yeah,
yeah.
that looks, of course I'll communicate openly with people in a positive relationship.
So this
Okay.
is just a quick quote about relationships that I couldn't agree with more. At KATA, I'm super excited about the team and everybody in the direction we're going. And it was, I know that some people here have worked with the old team, and I think that the current team is just all kind of going in the same direction. We're very supportive of each other. I don't think we've seen any combativeness amongst our team, and I'm
Good.
really grateful for that. And yeah, just some random other thing, and this is just me being whatever. But if anybody watches City TV News tomorrow, there might be an interesting story about relationships. Julie and I interviewed with them yesterday, and they have all our photos and the stream and everything from the wedding. So we're not sure 100% if it's going to be aired or be on the internet.
That's awesome.
It's kind of
Okay, well, you're going to have to share that link,
I
regardless
was
if
pretty
it's
excited
aired
about.
or internet. You're going to have to share the link
Yeah,
afterwards. Very cool.
yeah. The reporter is going to hopefully send us the links beforehand, but if not, we'll send
Awesome.
them after for sure. So, well, that brings us to the end of today. I thought it was a really important thing to talk about, and I love the fact that our community still gathers and is able to have these times. I mean, the book club has really meant a lot for me. I'm really glad to be getting back in the swing of these webinars. And I'm looking for subject ideas, for topic ideas. So if there's anything anybody wants to talk about, I'd love to hear from you. And we'll see if we can make it happen. Any comments, questions, and close?
Everyone's quiet.
Everyone's quiet now. We had to force
This
CC.
was great. I haven't attended one of these for quite a while. I think from maybe back when you first started doing them, and I've only been able to pop on once in a while here and there since then. But I'm finding I'm getting back on track with a lot of the regular things that I want to do and incorporate and stuff, and making them a bit of a priority in my schedule since I've been enforcing boundaries with other people.
Acting with intention. Yeah.
What's that?
Acting with intention.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was great. And this was a perfect topic to come back on again. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, Jonathan did. Yeah, great job.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, and then we will be,
Well, hey, everyone.
Oh, sorry, just going to say for that, we're still continuing same time, the last Wednesday of every month for this year. As of January, there is going to be the change in schedule. That is going to be, I think, because that way it was pointed out that we are excluding the BC folks because of the timing. And Reddit, thank you for joining us so very early in your day.
Thank you.
But yeah, so that way we can get everybody in. So it will be changed as of January because, of course, we set the schedule a year ahead of time. So that I think we had said noon, didn't we? It'll be same day Wednesday at noon, though, I think it was.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're just going to move it ahead an hour. So whatever that works for you.
Like noon, so it's 10 our time, so
Eastern.
it'll go 2 hours. Yeah, 10 Eastern.
Yeah.
So then that way it's 9 on BC. So that way anybody can join. So it'll be moved by 2 hours.
Tanya, I'm not sure where your reminder emails come from. I'm thinking maybe 17 Hats.
No, they come from Zoom directly.
Okay, because it says 2019 still.
Does it?
It says this is a reminder that enhancing the accountant bookkeeper connection 2019 will begin in
Thank
one
you.
day.
I will go and correct that.
Just go ahead and change it to 2021, and then you don't need to do it again in a couple of months.
There you are. Yeah.
There we go. There
Good
we
idea.
go. There we go. No, I think what happened is I just went in and changed the dates, and I guess I didn't clue in to go and change that. But thank you for that, Kim. I'll just delete the year altogether because it doesn't matter to
There you
continue.
are.
So.
And this is the one link that I get from you that I can't add to my calendar.
Oh,
It
yes.
sets up a whole new calendar.
Yes,
So
I actually
I've got
spoke
this
to my
weird,
I spoke to my
Untitled
IT
calendar.
company
It's like
about that.
it won't integrate.
Yeah, the ICS link, it doesn't integrate. It does integrate with Outlook, but not with my Outlook. It opens in a different one. And I
That's a new
actually,
calendar.
yeah, I actually spoke to my IT company about it just yesterday because literally Monday I had a virus in the morning and I lost my entire day for IT stuff. And so I thought it was related to that. And so I called my IT company again and I said, oh, this ICS file, it's opening in a brand new calendar instead of my calendar. And we tried a few other ICS files and they worked no problem. So they said it was your specific one, that maybe it's from an older version or something.
Okay.
But yeah, Kathy, I'm glad you mentioned that because I had the exact same thing happen.
Okay, so anybody email me directly at Tanya. So I know most of you have it, but there's some that don't. So TANYA at mycbs.ca. I'm putting that right down here in the chat at mycbs.ca. So that's my direct email. I will add you guys into my calendar and send an invite from mine because that should solve the problem. Hopefully, then we'll test it out for January with a couple of you, and we'll see if the new ones are fine. If not, then that's just the workaround. I'll just add you into mine and send an invite from mine. So that way you'll still get the invite, but you just won't add it to your calendar from there. You'll add it to your calendar from my own separate invite. Cool. So yeah, we can do that workaround for sure.
Yeah, because the rest of the stuff that you send out works fine.
Yeah, all your Friday meetings, all those ones.
Everything else is fine.
And those ones come from 17 Hats.
Okay.
And this is Zoom directly, so that's interesting. Okay, no, well, that's great. So again, anybody that's having issues, just email me. We'll work on that and get that worked out. But like I say, worst case workaround, I'll just send it from mine because we know those work. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And
that was a fun one. Thank you.
It was. I love the interacting ones when we get to bring everybody on and interact. So yeah, they're nice.
Thanks again, Tanya.
Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, have a great day, everyone. Thanks. Take care. Bye.